You can read any book about grief. You can watch any video about grief. You can hear any lecture about grief. Pretty much anytime you study anything that has to do with grief and giving advice on how to deal with grief, you're going to hear one of the most important things is making sure that you have a good, solid support system. But what if you are one of the people who doesn't have a support system? What if your friends and family live far away from you? What if you are the only person left in your family and everyone has passed away? What if you're super introverted and you don't have a lot of friends that you can call when you're having a bad grief day? What do you do if you feel like you are grieving on your own? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Stay tuned. If you are still watching this, perhaps you are one of the people who is going through one of life's toughest challenges, and that is going through the grief process without the close support of family and friends. Grieving when you feel like you are alone. I've recently had some viewers contact me to ask me if I would make this specific video because everywhere you look, everyone's telling you to talk to your friends and family. But what if you don't have friends and family? So let's talk about how we deal with this loneliness and supporting yourself on your grief journey. So first, I want to clarify what being alone in grief is, because it can be when you're actually on your own and you literally have no one that you can rely on to talk to and support you. But loneliness and grief doesn't necessarily have to be about physically being alone. It can be the feeling of being in a room crowded with people, but still feeling like you are disconnected from everyone. When you feel alone in your grief, the silence is just deafening, and all you want is a listening ear and a hug, physical contact, and that support. And if you can't find it, it's heartbreaking. It makes dealing with your grief that much harder. So what do we do if that's our situation? I'm going to try to offer you some practical steps that you can take to deal with your grief if you don't have that support. Obviously, my first choice would be that you have at least one person that you feel comfortable talking to on a one-on-one basis about your grief, whether that is a family member or a friend or a professional like a counselor or a grief coach. That is obviously the number one recommendation because it can be so helpful to be able to get things off your chest and just talk through your feelings. But if you don't have that, these are the steps that I would like you to think about taking. So number one, I would say after you acknowledge that loneliness and reassure yourself that even if you have people nearby, if you're feeling that disconnect, that is a normal part of grief. It's part of grieving to want to push other people away and just sort of hunker down and like hibernate in our own feelings. This is more if people do not have anyone with which they can share their grief. So if that is you, things to think about. And again, they're going to seem very basic, but there's a method behind the madness, so just trust me. The first one is something that I talk about a lot, and that is creating daily routines. So this is going to help you because it's going to make you feel like you have purpose in your day. Simple routines like getting up at the same time every day, making time for your meals throughout the day, getting a little bit of exercise every day if possible, and hopefully leaving some time for self-care in that process. Even if you work a full-time job like I do, routine can help to give you a sense of normalcy. We all know after a deep loss that your life is never going to be normal like it was before, but you get that motion towards normalcy back. And more than anything, it makes you feel a little bit of structure and control in a world that is probably very chaotic. My next suggestion, if you're feeling alone in your grief, is to create some sort of tangible outlet for your emotions. If you don't have the outlet of discussing your grief with other people, then you need to create an outlet for yourself. So this could be something like writing your feelings in a journal so that you get them out of your mind, out of your body, onto the paper, that release of those emotions. It can be punching your pillow or screaming into that thing. That is a perfectly acceptable release of your emotions. It can be writing poetry or songs or doing artwork, or for some people, working out. Any of those ways to kind of release those strong emotions that you're feeling, to get them out into the ether, is a really good thing for you to do if you're feeling alone. Next is kind of along with those routines. Once you have your routines in place, I would suggest creating very small, achievable goals for yourself. These can be very simple things, like once, like I said, you have your routine in place, you kind of bump up the things that you're doing. So if you're waking up at the same time every day, maybe set the goal to make your bed every day. Maybe set your goal to go on 2 short 10-minute walks around your neighborhood instead of 1. You could set a goal to start meal prepping, so you're eating healthier meals. You can set a goal to, make it fun. It can be something like completing a puzzle every week, or doing a word search, or reading a book a week. Setting small goals that are not too overwhelming, again, kind of keep you moving forward, but doing those things does not require another person to be with you or doing it with you. It's something you can do on your own that will help your grief journey. All right, next, I think we're on 4. Are we on I forget what number we're on, but we're just going to keep rolling. And the next thing I would suggest is to embrace self-care. Again, I say it all the time. I kind of hate how people throw self-care around so easily, but it is really important. So when I say self-care, I mean dedicating time for you to do something that is nourishing for your mind, your body, your soul, whatever it is that makes you feel good. So whether that is curling up on your sofa with a book, or taking a warm bath or shower, or going for a walk in nature, something that you find comforting, that is good for you and healthy, and something that you can look forward to in your day. So set time aside at least weekly to do something like that for yourself. Again, none of the things that I mentioned involve other people, so you can do them all alone, and that time will give you something to look forward to and work towards, and can help with your mental health during grief. Kind of along the lines of the self-care is also practicing radical self-compassion, especially because you don't have anyone who is assuring you that everything that you're doing is okay and normal, and assuring you that they are there for you if you need them. If you feel like you lack that, then you need to amp up the self-compassion for yourself. Please remember, no one's grief journey is the same. Grief is freaking messy. So it's okay if you feel like you're not doing grief correctly, whatever that is. It's unpredictable. It's totally fine to have bad days. Please don't give yourself a hard time. You need to give yourself grace. You need to understand that, especially in your situation when you don't have a support system, you need to be your best friend. You need to be your own advocate to know what you are okay with and what you are not okay with. And the fact that there is no normal, so you need to decide what your normal is and what is right for you in your own grief, because you don't have anyone there to reassure you about what you're doing. Okay, and this next one, I hope you don't hate me for saying this, but I am going to throw in here that even if you don't have friends and family that are close to you, and you don't feel like you have support of people that you love around you, there is something to be said for support from complete and total freaking strangers. So what I mean by that is trying to cultivate connections with people either in your community or online. Even if you are introverted like I am, it is really important to try to do this. Again, this can be last on your list, but if I were you, I would try to give it a try. So perhaps Like, I just looked around my Facebook for my area, the Facebook events, and I found a ton of local groups and support that were meeting for grief during the holidays. And I don't live in a huge area, so there's a possibility that somewhere near where you live, there is a group meeting to discuss holiday grief or grief in general. There may be a group from the compassionate friends, like whoever you're missing, whatever your loss is, you can look for specific groups that meet. They can either meet in person, you can meet online. If you find a grief group online, that's social interaction. That is still creating a support system, even if it's not someone that you are in like a familial love relationship with, it's still very valuable. You can also try to do things, even if it's not grief related, just to kind of get out into the world and get that little bit of social interaction, which I know, if you're anything like me, I don't really go out there looking for social interaction, but if you do want to find some and you are feeling very, very lonely and like you need some sort of human connection, you could try volunteer groups. You could try groups that relate to anything that you're interested in, like maybe board game clubs or D&D or gardening clubs or whatever it is that you like. Maybe try to make some connections in that kind of area. Again, not completely necessary because this is a video about going through grief alone, but I just wanted to remind you that there are places to connect, even if it's over the internet, even if it's in our comment section. Just say hi. Say hi to everyone here and maybe start a conversation with people who are going through a similar thing through our comment section. That is still human connection, and it's still really important, and it's still a means of support that you are capable of having. And I'm gonna throw in here, because I always do as kind of my disclaimer, that if you feel like you're getting to the point where you need professional assistance, please do not be ashamed, afraid, whatever, to try to find support either online or in your own area from professionals who are actually trained in helping people with their grief. So if you're feeling stuck, if none of the stuff that I'm saying is working, if you are super lonely, if you're thinking about harming yourself in any way, please make sure you reach out and get that professional help if needed. Okay, and the last thing that I am going to say, I hope you will take the right way, because it's something that actually I have gone through in this past year that was a huge shift for me. So this is a little bit more personal and maybe a little bit more woo-woo, and it takes a lot of, this one's going to take a lot of trust in yourself and a lot of kind of emotional change, but I think it might be important for you if you're feeling like you are alone in your grief. And the idea is to shift your mindset from loneliness to solitude. They sound like they're the same thing, but they are completely different. And again, I know this from going through this shift. This shift has helped me immensely with my own grief and with my own life situation, becoming an empty nester after having a huge family that I adored. So loneliness, like I said, is that feeling of isolation. It's being in a room crowded, full of people, but you still feel like you are all by yourself. Whereas solitude, on the other hand, is the act of being alone, being by yourself, but not being lonely. Loneliness is a negative thing because you're upset that you're feeling disconnected and you want to be with other people. You want that connection. Whereas solitude is actually a positive thing. It is when you're in a headspace, when you know that being on your own is building your resilience and building your strength, and you are getting to know yourself better, learning about yourself, learning what makes you tick and what is healthy and good for you, and starting to enjoy that time that you spend on your own. So the way that I kind of shifted this framework in my own mind, like I said, it took a while because when I first moved into my tiny house, I first was an empty nest, single mom. I felt very lonely. It was the first time I'd ever lived alone in my entire life. Over the months that I've lived here, I've managed to shift that mindset to actually like craving the solitude. When I have too much to do and I'm with too many people, I crave being here on my own. It's probably where I'm happiest at this point, if I'm being honest. And it's all about this change in perspective and the change in mindset. So how can you do this? Again, takes time, takes practice. It's one of those things where the way that you view your alone time can impact how you feel about it. So with solitude, you see your alone time as an opportunity instead of a loss. It is opportunity for self-care. It is opportunity for self-reflection. It is opportunity for growth if you're learning something new on your own. Being alone can help you know yourself so much better. It allows you to maybe pursue passions or projects or hobbies that other people wouldn't have the time to pursue. Solitude can allow you to be intentional with how you are spending your time. And I realize that this is all easier said than done, especially if you are grieving, because when you're grieving, sometimes being alone with your thoughts makes it so much harder to enjoy that solitude. But my hope for you is that with practice of shifting that mindset and looking at the time that you have alone as a chance to do all of these things for your own self-improvement and your own healing and your own health, that you will come to actually appreciate that time that you have without other people. It's a really empowering process to try to shift your mindset in this way. And even though grief is so hard, learning to embrace your solitude rather than regret your loneliness, I think can actually help you find contentment, and maybe even find contentment faster than other people who are surrounded by friends and family on a constant basis. Grief is a lonely journey for everyone, and navigating grief alone is hard. There is no sugarcoating it. But amidst the solitude, please remember that you have the strength and you have the resilience to get through it. And I believe in you, and we are all here in this community to help you if you need it. Just like with everything, it is step by step, baby steps, minute by minute, and you can do it. I am sending you love and hugs as always. And as always, there is another video linked that is suggested for you to watch after this one. I hope you'll join me in the video that is linked next. I will see you guys next week.